the canvas of memories. The soft gallery lighting cast a warm glow over Olivia Reynolds' newest painting, a sweeping landscape with hidden figures emerging from mist and shadow. She adjusted the silver bangle on her wrist, a nervous habit that persisted despite the 5 years she'd spent building her reputation in the Boston art scene. "They're all watching the painting, not you," whispered Naomi, her gallery manager and closest friend. "Stop fidgeting." Olivia took a deep breath. "I know. It's just, this collection means more to me than the others." The Emergence series represented her journey from the broken woman she'd been after James walked away. James Parker, with his charming smile and hollow promises, who had told her that her art was cute, but not a real career. James, who had left for someone more aligned with his ambitions, whatever that meant. A familiar laugh cut through the murmur of the crowd, and Olivia's fingers froze mid-fidget. That laugh. She hadn't heard it in years, but her body recognized it instantly. "Is that—" Naomi began, following Olivia's gaze. James Parker stood across the gallery, champagne flute in hand, surrounded by the kind of people who considered art an investment rather than a passion. He looked older, more polished, but his eyes still crinkled, at the corners when he smiled. And he was walking directly toward her. "Olivia," he said, his voice warm with practiced affection. "Your work is extraordinary." "James?" she replied, proud of how steady her voice remained. "I didn't expect to see you here." He gestured to the painting. "When I saw your name on the exhibition list, I knew I had to come. You've exceeded every expectation." The words she had once craved from him now felt like counterfeit currency. Too little, too late. "Excuse me," interrupted a deep voice. "Ms. Reynolds, I wonder if I might have a word about hidden tides." The man standing before them was tall with thoughtful, gray eyes that somehow matched the precise shade of his impeccably tailored suit. Everything about him suggested quiet power, from his stance to the subtle way others in the room had shifted when he approached. "Of course," Olivia said, grateful for the interruption. "James, if you'll excuse me—" Ethan Blackwood, the stranger, introduced himself, extending his hand to Olivia while barely acknowledging James. "I've followed your work since your first showing at the Meridian Gallery." James lingered awkwardly. "Perhaps we could catch up later, Olivia, for old time's sake?" Before she could respond, Naomi appeared. "Olivia, the Boston Arts Journal wants 5 minutes." She nodded politely to Ethan. "Mr. Blackwood, a pleasure to see you again." As Naomi led her away, Olivia glanced back to see the two men sizing each other up, James with thinly veiled irritation, Ethan with the composed confidence of someone who had nothing to prove. "You know him?" Olivia whispered to Naomi. "Ethan. Blackwood owns Nexus Technologies. He's become quite the collector over the past few years. Very selective, very private." Naomi squeezed her arm. "And James showing up? Tonight just got interesting." Later, as the crowd thinned, Olivia found herself before Hidden Tides, the centerpiece of her collection. A small red dot indicated it had been sold. "I hope you don't mind," came Ethan's voice from behind her. Something about the way light breaks through the darkness spoke to me. She turned to find him studying not the painting, but her. "Most people see the technique first," she said. "Very few notice the light." "That's because most people are looking at the surface," he replied. "I've always been more interested in what lies beneath." Across the room, James watched them, his expression unreadable. Olivia felt a strange sense of standing at a crossroads, her past behind her, an unexpected future ahead, and her present suddenly filled with possibilities she hadn't imagined when the evening began. Shadows of the past morning light streamed through the tall windows of Olivia's studio loft, illuminating canvases in various stages of completion. She dabbed ultramarine blue onto her palette, trying to focus on the commissioned piece due next month, rather than the business card burning a hole in her pocket. Ethan Blackwood's card, heavy stock, minimalist design, with a handwritten note on the back. I'd like to discuss commissioning a piece for the Nexus headquarters. No rush. No rush. Unlike the elaborate bouquet that had arrived an hour ago, accompanied by James's card requesting dinner to properly catch up. The flowers, exotic orchids and roses, were beautiful but overwhelming, much like James himself. You could just throw them out, Naomi suggested, perched on a stool with her laptop open to gallery emails. Or better yet, let me throw them out, symbolically. Olivia laughed, despite herself. It's been 5 years? I'm not that fragile girl anymore. Exactly why you shouldn't waste time on him, Naomi countered. Remember when he said your little hobby would never pay the bills? The memory stung less than it once had. Olivia had proven him wrong many times over, transforming from a timid artist, creating safe, marketable pieces, to someone whose work sparked bidding wars among collectors. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The lighting at Caldwell's is excellent. If you're free for dinner tonight, I'd value your perspective on their collection. Ethan Blackwood simple. Professional, no pressure or grand gestures. Both of them in one day, Olivia murmured. The universe has a twisted sense of humor, Naomi replied, eyes narrowing at Olivia's expression. Wait, you're not actually considering seeing James? Olivia set down her brush. I'm considering closure. Maybe I need to hear whatever he has to say to fully move on. Or maybe you've already moved on, and reopening old wounds serves no purpose. Naomi sighed. But you'll do what you need to do. Just promise me you'll remember what he did. The restaurant James had chosen was predictably exclusive, the kind that didn't list prices on the menu. He stood when she arrived looking both confident and somehow nervous. You came, he said, relief evident in his voice. I came, she agreed, settling across from him. Your flowers were extravagant. James leaned forward. I wanted to make an impression. Seeing you last night, seeing your success, I realized what a monumental mistake I made. Olivia sipped her water, noting how he centered himself in her accomplishments. A mistake? Leaving you? Leaving us? His hand inched toward hers on the table. Hannah and I divorced last year. Creative differences, you could say. Hannah? Olivia asked. The woman He trailed off, having the decency to look uncomfortable. The woman more aligned with your ambitions, Olivia finished for him. James winced. I was a fool. Her family connections got me partner at the firm, but it was empty. Nothing like what we had, what we could have again. Before Olivia could respond, she glimpsed a familiar figure across the restaurant. Ethan sat with an older woman, engaged in what appeared to be a serious conversation. As if sensing her gaze, he looked up, offering a subtle nod of recognition before returning his attention to his companion. Are you listening? James's voice cut through her thoughts. I'm sorry. What were you saying? James followed her gaze, his expression hardening. Blackwood. Of course. He lowered his voice. You should know his interest in artists usually extends only until he acquires what he wants. And you know this how? Boston's business circles are small. His reputation with women is complicated. Something in his tone rang false. Olivia had spent years learning to trust her instincts again after James had undermined them so thoroughly. Unlike your uncomplicated approach of leaving when something better comes along, she challenged. James had the grace to look ashamed. I deserve that, but people change, Liv. I've changed. I want to prove that to you. He reached for her hand again, this time capturing it in his. Give me that chance. Across the restaurant, Ethan stood to leave. As he helped the older woman with her coat, his eyes met Olivia's briefly. There was no judgment in his gaze, only a quiet intensity that made her suddenly aware of James's grip on her hand. She gently withdrew it. "I need time, James." "Of course," he agreed too quickly. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere this time." As they parted outside the restaurant, Olivia felt torn between the familiar pull of the past and the uncertain promise of the future. In the soft evening light, shadows stretched long across the sidewalk, reminders that every bright moment created darkness somewhere else. The question was, which shadows belonged to her past, and which to a future not yet painted? Painted Truths. The Westbrook Foundation's annual charity auction was the kind of event where Boston's elite gathered to be seen supporting the arts while secretly keeping track of who bid what. For Olivia, it represented something else entirely: validation. Having one of her pieces selected for the auction's centerpiece collection marked her official arrival in the upper echelons of the art world. "Your work is displayed between a Rothko and a newcomer from Paris," Naomi whispered excitedly as they entered the grand ballroom of the Westbrook Hotel. "Do you know what that means?" Olivia smoothed the midnight blue gown she'd splurged on for the occasion. "That the curator has an interesting sense of contrast? It means you're no longer emerging. You've emerged," Naomi corrected, stopping. A passing waiter to grab 2 champagne flutes. "To new heights." They clinked glasses, but Olivia's celebration was short-lived as she spotted James across the room, deep in conversation with Gregory Pearson, the auction chair. When James noticed her, he whispered something to Pearson, who turned to look in, her direction with undisguised interest. "That can't be good," Naomi muttered. Before Olivia could respond, an elegant woman in her 60s approached them. "Ms. Reynolds, I'm Virginia Blackwood. My son speaks quite highly of your work." Mrs. Blackwood, Olivia recognized her as Ethan's dinner companion from the restaurant. "Thank you for coming tonight. I never miss the Westbrook auction, especially when my foundation is considering a new artist for our permanent collection." The older woman's eyes were the same penetrating gray as her son's. "I wondered if you might walk me through your piece before the bidding begins?" As they made their way toward the display, Olivia caught sight of Ethan in conversation with the museum's director. He nodded respectfully in her direction before returning to his discussion. "You've made quite an impression on him," Virginia noted, following her gaze. "He's acquired 17 pieces in the last decade. Yours is only the 3rd he's displayed, in his home rather than his offices." The revelation sent an unexpected warmth through Olivia. "I didn't realize. Ethan values authenticity," Virginia continued as they approached Olivia's painting, a striking image of a woman stepping from shadows into light, both in art and in people. Before Olivia could respond, James materialized beside them. "Mrs. Blackwood, always a pleasure." He turned to Olivia with practiced charm. "Liv, Gregory Pearson is very interested in commissioning you for his personal collection. I may have put in a good word." Virginia's expression cooled noticeably. "Mr. Parker, I wasn't aware you were an art consultant now. Just supporting talent." "Where I see it," James replied smoothly. "Olivia and I have a long history together." "History," Virginia repeated, her tone making the word sound ancient and irrelevant. "How interesting. If you'll excuse us, I believe the artist was about to explain her technique." James retreated, but the interaction left Olivia unsettled. Later, as she slipped away to gather her thoughts in a quiet corner of the mezzanine, she overheard voices from around the corner. "Parker, you're transparent." Ethan's voice, usually controlled, carried an edge. "Not everyone has billions to impress women, Blackwood." James sounded defensive. "Some of us have to use connections." "Is that what you're offering Olivia?" "Connections? I'm offering her what she wants. Recognition. The Pearson Commission could make her career." "Her talent has already made her career," Ethan countered. "What exactly are you getting from this arrangement?" A pause. Pearson's legal business, if you must know. He likes the idea of supporting my ex's work, finds it amusingly ironic. It's mutually beneficial. Except Olivia doesn't know she's being used as a business development strategy. Olivia stepped back, feeling sick. The grand room suddenly seemed airless. There you are, Naomi appeared, then frowned at Olivia's expression. What happened? James. Is using me to land a client, Olivia whispered, the reality settling like lead in her stomach. Nothing's changed. I'm still just a stepping stone to his ambitions. Before Naomi could respond, the auction announcer called for everyone to take their seats. Numbly, Olivia made her way to the reserved section. As bidding began for the first pieces, she felt a presence beside her. I apologize for eavesdropping, Ethan said quietly, taking the empty seat next to her. But I believe in informed decisions. You weren't concerned about informing me when you confronted James, she replied, hurt and confusion making her voice sharp. Fair point. His expression remained steady. I should have come to you directly. The auctioneer announced Olivia's piece, momentarily halting their conversation. Bidding started at $30,000 and quickly escalated. From the corner of her eye, Olivia saw James raise his paddle repeatedly, likely on Pearson's behalf. Each bid felt tainted now. When the bidding reached $85,000, Ethan raised his paddle. $100,000, he stated simply. A murmur rippled through the crowd. James's expression darkened as he conferred with Pearson, then reluctantly raised his paddle again. $110,000. Ethan didn't hesitate. $150,000. The room fell silent. The auctioneer looked between the two men, then at Pearson, who shook his head slightly. Sold to Mr. Blackwood for $150,000. As applause filled the room, Ethan turned to Olivia. Not for my collection, he said quietly. For the Children's Hospital, Healing Arts Program. Your work speaks to transformation, something they understand intimately. In that moment, as cameras flashed and people whispered, Olivia saw the stark contrast between the two men in her life. One who saw her as a means to an end, and one who saw the true value of what she created. And for the first time in years, she felt completely clear about which shadows belonged to her past. Strokes of destiny. The morning after the auction, Olivia's phone wouldn't stop buzzing with notifications. Art blogs, local news, and social media were ablaze with headlines about Ethan Blackwood's generous bid and donation of her painting to Boston Children's Hospital. Several galleries had already reached out with exhibition offers, and her agent had left 3 voicemails about potential commissions. Success should have felt sweeter. Instead, Olivia sat on her studio floor, surrounded by half-finished canvases, questioning everything. James's manipulation had reopened old wounds, making her doubt her judgment again. Had she only succeeded because powerful men decided she should? First James with his connections, now Ethan with his headline-making philanthropy. You're spiraling, Naomi observed, arriving with coffee and pastries. I can see it on your face. Am I really successful on my own merits? Olivia asked, accepting the coffee gratefully. Or am I just being passed from one influential man to another? Naomi sat, cross-legged opposite her. Olivia Reynolds, you were successful before either of them re-entered your life. Your waiting list for commissions was 6 months long. The Hunter Gallery exhibition sold out. You did that. The studio door buzzed. Naomi checked the security. Camera feed on her phone and frowned. It's James. Want me to send him away? Olivia squared her shoulders. No, I need to handle this myself. James entered carrying another extravagant bouquet and wearing an expression of wounded pride. Quite a show last night, he said, setting the flowers down without waiting for Olivia to accept them. Blackwood certainly knows how to make a statement. Is that what bothers you? That he outbid your client or that he donated the painting instead of keeping it? James's smile tightened. I'm concerned about you, Liv. Men like Blackwood collect artists like trophies. One minute you're his favorite, the next you're yesterday's discovery. Like how I was your favorite until someone more advantageous came along, Olivia countered, finding strength in finally confronting him directly. That was different. We were young. No, James, you were opportunistic, and you still are. She gestured toward the door. I've moved beyond being anyone's stepping stone. His expression hardened. You've changed. That was always the plan. She remained steady even as her heart raced. Goodbye, James. After he left, Naomi gave her a high five. That was magnificent. How do you feel? Lighter, Olivia admitted. But also... Her phone rang, interrupting her thought. The display showed her agent's number. Beth, what's going on? Her agent's voice came through, panicked. The Harrington retrospective contract. Someone's claiming copyright infringement on your Coastal Memories series. They're threatening to go public right before the opening. Olivia's blood ran cold. The Harrington Museum retrospective was her biggest opportunity yet, a career-defining moment. That's impossible. Those paintings are from my childhood memories. They're claiming you based them on photographs from a 1998 travel magazine. The lawyer's name is... Beth paused. Lawrence Pearson, from Parker and Associates. The connection was unmistakable. Pearson, James's potential client. Parker and Associates, James's firm. This is James, Olivia whispered, sinking into a chair. This is retribution. By afternoon, the situation had escalated. Art blogs were reporting alleged ethical concerns about her work. The Harrington was reviewing the situation. Years of building her reputation were unraveling over a vindictive lie. Desperate, Olivia searched her archives for anything that might prove her work's originality. As she frantically dug through old sketchbooks, her studio door buzzed again. Ethan stood in the doorway, concern evident in his expression. I heard about the allegations. How? She asked, too exhausted for pretense. I have alerts set for artists I follow, he explained, stepping inside. May I? He gestured to the chaos of papers around her. She nodded mutely, watching as he carefully examined her early sketches. These are dated 1996, he noted, pointing to childhood drawings clearly showing the same distinctive coastline that appeared in her professional series. 2 years before the alleged source material. It doesn't matter, Olivia said bitterly. In the court of public opinion, the damage is done. The Harrington is already distancing themselves. Ethan studied her for a long moment. What if we could prove definitively that your work predates any possible influence? How? My mother kept a summer home in Newport. In 1997, she commissioned a local art teacher to conduct workshops for children staying in the area. The foundation archives still have all the student work. He showed her a photo on his phone, a familiar seaside pavilion. I recognized your style immediately when I saw your professional work years later. It's what first drew me to your paintings. Olivia stared at the image. You knew? All this time? I knew you were talented even then. I didn't make the connection to James until recently. His expression softened. I have no interest in controlling your career or your choices, Olivia, but I won't stand by while someone tries to destroy what you've built. Within hours, the Blackwood Foundation had issued a press release showcasing Olivia's childhood works, alongside statements from the 1997 workshop teacher. Virginia Blackwood personally called the Harrington's director. By evening, Parker and Associates had withdrawn the infringement claim, citing new evidence and misunderstanding. Later, sitting on her studio rooftop with a glass of wine, Olivia watched the sunset paint the Boston skyline in gold and crimson. Thank you, she said simply when Ethan joined her. Not just for today, but for seeing me, the real me all along. Art reveals truth, he replied, his gaze steady on the horizon. Both in what's created and who creates it. In the fading light, Olivia felt something shift inside her, the final shadows of doubt giving way to clarity. She had built her success brick by brick. She had survived betrayal and emerged stronger. And now, facing forward, she recognized that true connection wasn't about power or advantage, it was about being seen, completely and honestly, by someone who valued the entire canvas of who she was. The masterpiece unveiled. The Harrington Museum's Grand Hall buzzed with anticipation. Olivia's retrospective Journeys in Light had become the most talked-about exhibition of the season, partly due to the controversy that had ultimately strengthened her reputation rather than damaging it. Art critics praised her unwavering authenticity, while collectors competed for her newest works. Olivia stood slightly apart from the crowd, watching people move through the exhibition space she had once only dreamed of occupying. Her collection spanned 15 years, from refined versions of her childhood coastal studies to her latest series exploring human connection through abstract light and shadow. The artist hiding at her own triumph? Virginia Blackwood appeared, beside her elegant in midnight blue. A bit like Shakespeare skipping opening night, Olivia smiled. I'm observing. There's something powerful about seeing people experience your work without explanation or interference. A wise approach, Virginia agreed. Though some admirers might be disappointed not to meet you. Ethan mentioned you haven't confirmed for the dinner afterward. The mention of Ethan brought a familiar warmth. In the 3 months since the infringement scandal, their relationship had evolved naturally. Conversations about art giving way to deeper discussions about life, purpose, and possibility. He had become a steady presence without ever imposing, respecting her need to navigate her success on her own terms. I have somewhere else to be tonight, Olivia admitted. Something important. Virginia studied her knowingly. He'll understand. Across the room, Naomi was gesturing urgently, surrounded by photographers and the museum director. With a sigh, Olivia rejoined the official festivities, giving interviews and accepting congratulations until her face hurt from smiling. Hours later, she slipped away from the museum, changed into jeans and a comfortable sweater, and drove to a quieter part of the city. The community center lights were still on, illuminating the simple sign, Youth Arts Initiative, all welcome. Inside, a dozen teenagers were putting final touches on a mural spanning the main wall, a collaborative project Olivia had been guiding for the past 8 weeks. This was where she had chosen to be on the night of her greatest professional triumph, with young artists discovering their voices. Ms. Reynolds, did they like your fancy paintings? 14-year-old Dimitri asked, paint splattered across his t-shirt. They did, she confirmed, picking up a brush to help with background details. But I'm more interested in how this mural is coming along. For the next hour, she lost herself in the simple joy of creation without expectation or judgment. These kids painted from pure expression. The way she had before success complicated the equation. They reminded her why art mattered beyond price tags and prestigious galleries. As the session ended and parents arrived for pickup, Olivia heard a familiar voice behind her. So this is where you disappeared to. She turned to find Ethan leaning against the door frame, his tie loosened and jacket draped over one arm. How did you find me? She asked, suddenly self-conscious about her paint-stained hands and casual clothes. Naomi mentioned your Tuesday commitments. He stepped into the room, surveying the vibrant mural with genuine interest. This is remarkable work. They're remarkable kids, Olivia said, pride evident in her voice. Most have never had access to art education before this program. Ethan nodded thoughtfully. My mother mentioned the foundation might expand its youth arts funding next year. I see why she's enthusiastic about it. They fell into comfortable silence as Olivia gathered supplies and cleaned brushes. It struck her how different this moment was from any she'd shared with James, who had always filled silence with talk of himself, who had seen her passion as something to tolerate rather than understand. "I missed you at the dinner," Ethan said, finally. "Though I suspect you were exactly where you needed to be." "I wanted to remember what matters," she explained, gesturing to the mural. "Success is meaningless if it disconnects you from why you began creating in the first place." "Balance is elusive," he agreed. "Worth pursuing nonetheless." When the center was locked up for the night, they walked together to the parking lot. The spring air carried the scent of rain and possibility. "I have something for you," Ethan said, reaching into his car. He handed her a small, carefully wrapped package. "Consider it a belated congratulations." Inside was a weathered sketchbook, her name written in childish handwriting on the cover. "From the Newport workshop," he explained. "The Foundation archived everything. I thought you might want this piece of your history back." Olivia ran her fingers over the faded cover, emotion tightening her throat. "You understand, don't you? That the past shapes us, but doesn't define us. I understand that genuine connection requires seeing someone completely, past, present, and the future they're creating." His gray eyes held hers steadily. "I see you, Olivia. I always have." In that moment, standing beneath the vast night sky, Olivia recognized the truth that had been emerging like one of her own paintings, slowly revealing itself through layers of experience and understanding. With James, she had diminished herself to fit his expectations. With Ethan, she had expanded into her fullest self. "There's an old lighthouse on the coast," she said suddenly. "It appears in my earliest drawings. I haven't been there in years, but I'm going next weekend to sketch. For myself, not for any exhibition or commission." The invitation hung in the air between them. "I'd like to see it through your eyes," he replied simply. Later that night in her studio, Olivia opened the childhood sketchbook. Among drawings of seagulls and waves, she found a scene she'd forgotten. A small figure standing on cliffs overlooking the ocean, arms outstretched toward the horizon. Even then, she had been reaching for something greater, something authentic and true. She turned to a fresh canvas and began to paint, not the past or the present, but a future taking shape like dawn breaking over water. A future where she was neither defined by old wounds nor dependent on another's validation. A future where partnership meant walking side by side toward separate dreams that somehow strengthened when shared. The first brushstrokes were tentative, then grew bolder as the image emerged. This wasn't just another painting. It was a declaration of self, a map of the heart's journey from brokenness to wholeness. In every line and shadow, she painted not what others expected to see, but what she knew to be true. That sometimes the greatest masterpiece isn't found on canvas at all, but in the courage to stand fully in your own light, and to recognize when someone sees you there, not as a reflection of their desires, but as the irreplaceable creation you were always meant to be.